Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. This is the first meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for this year, and we're going to get to business right away. So let's rise for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the pledge.
Wait a minute, we're going to have the troops come down.
Come on down.
Here, over here. You're going to bring all the troops down? Come on down.
Standing right in front of the flag.
Big crowd. We got a few others over here coming.
Wow, we've got quite a crowd tonight.
Great. Flags in this corner here.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Town's future looks bright.
First item of business is approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I have one item to delete tonight. It would be under business items, item D under business items. We should have that to you here in the next couple of weeks.
D.
We have an item on the agenda, the roll call. Is that
I'm sorry?
on the agenda after Pledge of Allegiance? We have roll call. Is that
It's always on there, and I have my little cheat sheet of who's here and who's
okay?
not. So
All right.
I can start calling your name, and you can say present.
All the chairs are full.
All right.
So approval of agenda.
To approve.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Next item is mayor's report, and we have Chief Lee Tramel from the Sheriff's Department here tonight. He's going to tell us about some developments in the town of Farragut that I think you'll be happy about it. So, Lee.
Thank you very much. I'm Lee Tramel, Chief Administration for your Knox County Sheriff's Office, and it's a pleasure and honor to be here with you tonight. I have a few things I'd like to share with the town of Farragut. I know it's been reported on already, but we've changed our patrol zones, and it's going to add to some more folks in Farragut doing the job that we do in this area to protect and serve. What you're seeing now on the screen is our 2017 patrol zones. We had 12, and we've revamped our patrol zones and made Farragut its own zone now. And you can see, sorry, Bobby, right in this area, the town of Farragut. If we go to the next slide, we see our new zone. The town of Farragut now is its own zone. And if we have issues in the town of Farragut that requires more help, we have 404, 402, 401, and the 400 beat that will be able to put cars in the town of Farragut as we need them, help as we need them. And we've got some incredible numbers that I want to share with you tonight, too. The next slide, I think, right here. I'm sorry. Got a little ahead of myself, didn't I? I'm bad about that. But that shows a little close-up of what we're trying to do is reduce times on calls for service and add a stronger presence. What we've learned from the next slide is since we've opened our precinct in the town of Farragut, it has been it's been incredible what we've been able to do with our presence. And we believe that presence has, as you can see from this slide here, our property crimes. Violent crimes, it's hard to suppress violent crimes. If I want to hit you in the nose, there's not a lot a policeman can do about it. If I want, that's that one-on-one type thing, right? But property crimes, you can really work on property crimes by having a strong presence where bad guys don't know where you're going to be all the time and when they see you all the time. That's what we're seeing dropping this crime in Farragut so much is the collaboration and cooperation we've had in the public-private partnerships. Our Turkey Creek precinct, we had a precinct here. We had an office here in the town hall, but it didn't allow us the real presence that we need like our new precinct in Turkey Creek allows us. There's a sign down there that says Sheriff's Office. We have patrol officers from those other beats around Farragut. If we could go back to the prior screen I'm sorry.
You're fine.
There'll be a little something extra in your check next week if you'll just
Thank
stick
you.
with me. But you can see, all these folks that are running patrol in this area right here will end up right here in the town of Farragut at Turkey Creek doing their warrants, Skyping downtown with a magistrate to determine the probable cause for their warrants so they can take their people to jail. They'll transfer their people here in this area somewhere to a paddy wagon and they can go back to work. It keeps more patrolmen on the street longer. Revamping our patrol zones from 12 to 14, like we did 2017 we have 12, 2018 we now have 14 patrol zones. That allows us greater presence, more officers on the street than any time before in the history of Knox County, and it allows us to serve our public better. And the next slide now, promise I won't go back, but we can see what it's done for us, for our community, by these property crime rates dropping. It is what we expected, and we know through strong, progressive, proactive enforcement that we can do this. We can drop the crime rates. The crime that we all hear about, what's driving our crime, I should say, is our opiate addiction. If you've not heard about the epidemic that we're under, you've been living under a rock, because it is not just here in our Knox County community, it's in our in our entire southeast United States, well, throughout our country, really. There's very few states that have been, that's not been affected by this. But this is, I want to take this pattern, what we've done right here in Farragut. We've got a precinct in North Knoxville opened in Halls. I want to look at one in South Knoxville, one in East Knoxville, because, the empirical data that we have right here on what we've done with your help, and thank you very much for the support that we've received from the town of Farragut. It is amazing when your sheriff's office asks you for something or asks you to partner with them. You folks are always there, and I cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. And, we speak from the same goals. We really do. I've said many times before, if we implement something at the sheriff's office that is good for the sheriff's office, then it's good for the community. It really is. If it's good for the community, it's good for the sheriff's office, and that's how we measure things. This is not a one-way street that we live on. I'm very excited about the future from what we've learned in the last few years to where we're moving towards for our community. We're doing some really remarkable things that people are looking at us from all over the country. How we're dealing with mental health and drug addiction in our community, we are really leading the way, not just here regionally or even in our state, but literally in our country. And you folks have been a great part of that, helping us, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your support. This right here shows what we're doing works. It really does. Captain Lawson and the folks that run the organized retail crime unit, and Robbie, Captain Lawson kind of wears two hats. He's the precinct captain in Farragut, and he's your go-to guy. But he also runs the organized retail crime unit that is paying dividends for us. It started 6 years ago, and we've been concentrating on those types of crimes and what we see in that retail type of crime, the shoplifting, the thefts, the smash and grabs in retail areas. What we're learning from that is how much it ties to the epidemic that we're facing with opiates. It's incredible. People aren't stealing from our retailers to buy diapers for their children. They're not stealing to put food on their table. We see now, even with, they're stealing to buy drugs, and more now than it was a few years ago. It's heroin. Pills are getting more expensive, and these folks are going to heroin, and our community is awash in heroin. And we're doing, I've said this 1,000 times, but it's literally an all hands on deck approach. You folks get it. Our sheriff's office gets it. Our county commission gets it. Our city police department, our health department, the attorney general's office, all government entities in our community, we get it. And we're all working together to solve this epidemic that we're under, and it is no small task. But I will tell you without hesitation or mental reservation that what we're doing works. We've got things other than this that we're doing in our jail once you're incarcerated for this. This lock them up and throw away the key mentality that we've had for so long on these types of crimes, or this type of illness, I should say. It doesn't work. We have to get these people the help and treatment to get them back off drugs in our society. If we can get them off drugs, this right here will drop even more significantly. I believe that. I know that because we see these crimes driving our drugs. They're stealing to get drugs every single day. Even the food stamps, the EBT cards, are being sold. The food that nourishes their body to sustain their life, they will sell for drugs. We see it. We know it. We're dealing with it every day. So, next slide. This is what we did on that organized retail crime unit in just a little over a month. 433 arrests, 4 were fugitives from justice. We had a couple of DUIs. Officers recovered almost $100,000 in stolen property. That includes 4 stolen vehicles. We seized almost $10,000 in cash and 15 grams of meth. And, we found, just a number of drugs, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, and needles. And we took 2 guns off the street. But that's just in 40 days in a small area that we concentrate on. And it is amazing the work the men and women do that are out there on the front lines chasing these bad guys and trying to make a difference in our community. And I'll tell you, they have really made it. They've done a good job. We're not finished yet. We're going to continue this work next year. Our organized retail crime unit used to be just a unit that we operated from that time, from November till the end of December during the heavy shopping area. But we've saw so many good returns from that task force that it is now a standalone unit at the sheriff's office. And I hope to be able to increase the numbers of that task force because the peripheral investigations that we're receiving from this task force are paying dividends for our community. We're understanding more and more and more every day from these criminals that we're arresting on how they're doing what they're doing. And we have to stay ahead of that. We have to stay progressive. We have to stay ahead of the criminals, and we have to look down the road to see the trends that are coming towards us so we can try to put roadblocks in front of that so they can't get here. We're on the right track. We are nowhere out of the woods yet, though. And it's going to take a lot more of us working together, that togetherness. I tell you, I've worked when the police chief and the sheriff didn't talk and the mayor didn't talk to the city mayor, and we don't have those issues. We have a great deal of communication that works across every aspect of and it has to because this drug does not affect just one segment of our society. This epidemic that we're under, this disease that it is, does not affect one neighborhood. It spreads out through every demographic, social, economic boundary that's out there. So don't think because I live in Farragut that I'm immune to this, or because I live in Halls I'm immune to this. This is everywhere. And for that reason, we all, no matter where you're at, public, private sector, we all need to be fighting this type of epidemic. And I think we're on the right track. But I wanted to come here and share with you. I know we've talked about the patrol zones. It's been mentioned in your meetings before. But as the town of Farragut grows, we'll be there with you, growing and learning and doing the very best we can for you folks.
Well, we certainly appreciate what you're doing, and we're with you.
Well, I assure you, it's not me. I've got men and women out there that are a lot younger and prettier than I am that are out there really doing the work, right? But we do have a vision that we're following, and thank you very much for your confidence and your support.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tramel, I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I had, maybe it was 6 months ago, 8 months ago, you hosted a meeting with Turkey Creek retailers.
Yes, ma'am.
I would love it if we could do that again, maybe have a little bit more planning, get some of the Farragut businesses that aren't in Turkey Creek involved in that. I think any information that any of our retailers have is helpful for them.
You know, you're so right. I would be happy to do that anytime. We've been very open about, there was a train of thought years ago that if you didn't tell people what was going on, it would make them feel safe. But we use our public as our great force equalizer. We want you to know what's happening in your neighborhoods, and meetings like that you're talking about really spreads that word, especially among retailers that are fighting the same people in their stores stealing over and over again. And it's amazing. That was a great meeting. We took what she's speaking of, we took a drug addict that we had arrested that was trying to get clean, and she was helping us, and we worked these thefts kind of like drug cases. And you've all seen on TV where they arrested, somebody using drugs, and they try to climb the ladder. Well, who'd you buy it from? And then who did you buy it from? And who did you buy it from? So the thefts, we kind of work those the same way. You stole from Kohl's or you stole from Walmart. Where are you taking your stuff? How are you getting rid of it? Because people buying drugs they don't want a DeWalt drill set. They want cash. So when we started following these addicts on how are you doing this? Where are you taking it? How are you turn this into cash? We've learned a great deal. And this particular lady that was out here stealing 7 to 9 times a day, she knew these managers of these stores. She knew when they come to work. I mean, she's a drug addict, but she was not stupid.
No, and she knew who was keeping an eye and who
Yes,
she could get away with.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What we learned from her, and we brought her in front of these retailers in a group setting, a lot like this, and she's telling these retailers, looking at them, I know you work second shift at Kohl's, and you're easy to steal from because, you're always in there drinking coffee. I mean, and these folks learned so much from her. How they're hiding and getting the devices off of the clothing and stuff. They've got ways. I mean, I assure you, it was eye-opening for some of these folks, but it was great training for them as well to learn what these addicts are looking for when they're in their stores, or not even in their stores, knowing what cars they drive. So these folks, I mean, when you're an addict like this, many of you know this, but I lost a brother in 2012 of a brain tumor. He had a glioblastoma and lived 3 years, died. What we're facing today, these people that are shooting heroin are no less terminally ill than my brother was. They will die. It's a matter of time when. They're going to get that fatal overdose. They're going to shoot too much or get the fentanyl they didn't know was in there. They're terminal. You cannot live. This is not a recreational drug. You cannot live doing this drug. They're dying. And we see it every day with the overdose deaths, that have been climbing in our community for 7, 8 years. Narcan now is everywhere. If you're a drug addict, you can go get it. And then some drug dealers, it's a badge of courage. If I've sold Robbie a balloon of heroin and he OD'd, hey, Robbie OD'd on my stuff. You need some of this. It's a badge of courage for him. It doesn't scare people. It's amazing. It's amazing for us that that aren't in it to wrap your arms around the fact that you're going to do something that could end your life just like that. You better keep that Narcan close. This stuff is strong. I mean, and nobody wants to grow up to be a junkie. Nobody, I assure you. But it's an amazing, amazing addiction that we've not ever faced in this country. But we're going to get out of it, and we're headed in the right direction through compassion. First of all, you have to have compassion for the addicts that are out there, but you also have to have compassion for the victims they create, the children that are out there that they leave motherless and fatherless, and the victims of crime that are in their path that they create through their addiction. So, having that total understanding of really what we're facing and having that total buy-in from our community, I know we're going to get through this. I know we will.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
The next item is Citizens Forum. Do we have any?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on to approval of minutes from December 14.
Approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Next item then is business items. First one is approval of resolution R-2018-01, appointment of municipal judge.
Yes, sir. In accordance with the Town of Farragut Municipal Code, Chapter 12, Section 12-2, the office of the municipal judge shall be filled by resolution and appointed by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Any person appointed to this office of municipal judge shall hold a bachelorate degree in the accredited university or college, shall be at least 30 years of age, and have been a resident of the town for a period of 1 year preceding the election to the office. The normal term of the office is 1 year. Keith Alley, who is currently the municipal judge, he was first appointed in 2016, and he has agreed to serve another term. So the motion is to approve Resolution R-2018-01, appointment of Keith Alley as the Town of Farragut municipal judge.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is approval of a request for variance from the distance from intersections and access ways ordinance in association with a requested right in, right out access onto Concord Road for property referenced as parcel 37-03, tax map 153, for 4.68 acres, zoned NC, Knox County, John and Sarah Malin, applicant.
Okay, this item was actually presented to the board back in October, October 12th. And at that time, you all did not take any final action. You requested that we have more information provided on both the existing and proposed access points onto the Concord Road corridor, because we all know that that corridor is getting ready to be improved by TDOT. So the board members wanted to have more information before they made a decision on this particular request. The town's engineering staff secured the TDOT road improvement plans, and we placed that on the staff developer agenda on October 31st. And there actually were 3 aldermen at that meeting. And we looked at the entire corridor with the applicant and the applicant's engineer to see where existing access points were and what TDOT had envisioned for that corridor. What was recommended by the board at that staff developer meeting was that TDOT would need to give their review and approval of the access point requested by the applicant, along with a recommended deceleration lane or taper lane, because that's a town standard practice on heavily traveled roads to have a taper or a deceleration lane so that someone turning into the property will get themselves out of the flow of traffic. It provides for a better and a more safe and more efficient flow of traffic. So once that was obtained, then it could be brought back to the board for consideration. The applicant's right-in, right-out access and their 75-foot taper was provided. There was a statement issued by TDOT that they were okay with this if the town of Farragut approved this. The specific request is, as I mentioned earlier, just for a right-in, right-out. It's approximately 380 feet from Second Drive, which is kind of on the south end of the Concord Road corridor. There's another public street on the east side of Concord Road as you're going toward the roundabout on North Shore. This is the second access point on the east side north of the roundabout is Second Drive. Their proposed access is about 380 feet from that Second Drive access to the north, and it would be about 310 feet from where a likely access point north that would line up with the sewage treatment facility access would be. So the town's ordinance requirements are on arterial roads like Concord Road that access points are to be 400 feet apart unless a variance is requested and approved by both the Planning Commission and the board. So the applicant is requesting through this access request a variance of 20 feet from the distance from Second Drive and 90 feet from the access to the north where the access would be. The applicant's engineer is here. He talked about the reasons and the justifications from their perspective at the staff developer meeting, and I think he can elaborate on that for you, because your action would need to, if you are in agreement with the access and the variances, you do need to provide some justification for your action so that we're not establishing a precedent in other portions of the corridor. I will say that one of the things when this was recommended by the Planning Commission that they stipulated was that this would be subject to there be not being any median cuts as a result of this access request. There's 3 sections of raised medians on TDOT's Concord Road Improvement Plan, and there's a section through here between the sewage treatment facility and Second Drive that has a raised median, and we would not want to see that compromised or removed as a result of this request. So that's kind of an overview of where we're at. Again, Robert Campbell, the applicant's engineer, is here. He can talk to you about their justifications for the request, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the requested variances due to the sinkhole located proximate to Second Drive, no future dedicated right turn lane on Second Drive, the possible negative impact to pedestrians, the relief from queuing traffic on Second Drive, and the existence of an opportunity to require a traffic study in the future if need be, and subject to the median cut stipulation recommended by the Town Engineer and Planning Commission.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I think we ought to add that taper to the motion.
Add the taper.
To the motion, yeah.
Is it, we did discuss it. Did we discuss the taper? Did
Yeah,
we discuss
and
the taper?
it's part of their latest proposal too. That's part of their request at this point. But you can
Okay. Does that need to be
also,
part of the?
there it is. Okay, that's the taper, the actual request, the right in, right out with
So-
the taper.
So you want me to amend the motion to say, subject to a median cut stipulation and taper recommended by the Town Engineer and Planning Commission? Does that work?
Well, you could, yeah, that's fine.
It's fine with me.
Presented.
Okay.
As presented.
Or as presented,
Yeah, you could
Or
just
as
in your
presented.
packet.
Okay.
Right,
Correct.
yeah, that,
You got it down, Mark, right?
I don't have to take these minutes, so thank goodness. We'll see if Allison has it down.
Allison, I have a,
I think I have it down. I can help her if she needs it.
as presented. That sounds good. Okay.
Right.
So I have an amended motion and a second.
Second.
Any more discussion?
None. I have none. I cannot think of a single good reason to oppose this. It seems like a common sense thing, so. Sorry it's taken us that long to get to it.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes.
Thank you all.
Next item is approval of agreement with McKimmon Construction Company LLC for repairs to Everett Road Greenway.
You'll recall that the Everett Road Improvements Project was substantially completed by McKinnon Construction back in December of 2015. That project included greenways that were adjacent to Everett Road from Union Road to Split Rail Farm on the western side, which is the whole length of the project, and from Smith Road to Split Rail Farm on the eastern side. In late spring, early summer of last year, our public works staff started noticing that there was a good bit of rutting that was forming in certain portions of the greenway due to the weight of the right-of-way tractor, just as they were just doing standard maintenance procedures, mowing, essentially. Upon inspection, we saw that ruts were severe enough, upwards of 3 inches, that we needed to close those portions of the greenways to the public. We contracted with Geo Services LLC, which is a local geotechnical engineering firm, to go out and do borings in the locations where we had, well, they went from one end to the other to try to determine the cause of the problem as well as to recommend a fix. Going over the Geo Services report, which was included in your packets, along with our own project diaries, our inspection reports and compaction reports, it appears that there are several things that might be contributing to the problem. As a result of that, we don't feel that we can attribute all of the issues to construction. We don't feel comfortable in saying the contractor is fully responsible, nor do we feel comfortable that the town is fully responsible for the repairs. So we've had several discussions with McKinnon Construction over this, and McKinnon has provided an agreement that is before you tonight where they are offering to provide all of the labor and equipment for the repair with an estimated cost of $31,360 if the town provides materials and delivery of those materials with an estimated cost of $29,250. Staff recommends approval of the agreement with McKinnon Construction for repairs to damaged greenways at Everett Road.
Move for approval of agreement with McKinnon Construction Company LLC for repairs to damaged greenways at Everett Road.
Second.
I have a quick question, more of it. During our conversation, we're talking about what happened was the fill that was used underneath the trails was substandard. Is that? Or it was?
It was not the best quality of fill material, but it's a standard call to make. In this case, we had, due to the staging of the project, we had both a borrow project where we bring dirt into the project,
Okay.
as well as a waste project.
Okay.
It does happen sometimes, usually due to the staging. In order to haul off the material, which was not the best material, it's highly plastic soils, We could haul it off to a landfill at that time. That's the only option we had, which would have been a cost of $100,000 to $130,000. But a typical call on a project like this is to waste that material on the sides outside the roadway prism. In this case, that includes the area where the greenways are located. Normally, that would never be a problem, but we were faced with
With the drought.
Last year.
So that would settle in, and if it hadn't been for the drought, I guess what my question is in the future, if we're in a drought situation and we know that we're using material that's kind of plastic, do we have a
I
protocol
don't
in place?
think we'll ever make that call again.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that TDOT has done for years. I've been involved with projects where we did that, and never a problem.
Well, that's my question, is because you're talking about $100,000 to haul that off, whereas we're just talking about $29,000 to rectify the situation.
Typically, it's a reasonable call to make that, to say, because I've never seen this issue come up. I am aware that a couple of projects in the area that were doing grading at the same time last year are seeing some significant rutting.
Okay.
They're still fighting it out with the contractors.
Okay.
But in this case, I think it can all be reconciled with the agreement we have before us.
I don't have any other questions.
I have none.
None. Ready? All in favor say aye.
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 Passes. Next item is approval of a cost share agreement with the developers of the Harville property.
Mayor, we deleted that item off the agenda.
Oh,
Before
yeah.
we got started.
I didn't see it. In that case, we're moving to E, approval of resolution R-2018-02, legislative request for authorization for the town of Farragut to enact a hotel motel tax.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been an item that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen has had as a priority for several years now. And just giving a little background and history on this, back in 1988, the legislature enacted a law that said basically that no new hotel motel taxes could be enacted from any city that had not already enacted them, and their county that they were in has a hotel motel tax. So over the years since then, there have been 17 different local governments that have gone to the legislature and requested authorization to be exempted from that law. The legislature has approved those. Obviously, the board is well aware that in the last couple of years, the state has made some recent legislation in getting rid of the hall tax that we certainly rely on for funding, as well as the changes to the way with the Improve Act, that we actually get money dedicated for road improvements, but those monies unfortunately have come away from the general fund. All that is in the tune of more than $1 million a year in revenues that the town will be losing over the next 2 to 3 years. So with this hotel motel tax authorization, what we're looking at is being able to get a tourism program enacted. Recently, the board has approved a budget for that, as well as a position to get that program started. And then we would bring that back, assuming that the legislature approves of the bill, and we would have to bring that back to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for you to actually approve an ordinance enacting that at that time. Representative Jason Zachary and Senator Richard Briggs have both just today filed legislation on our behalf to request that exemption to be in place. And so what this resolution is doing is just requesting the General Assembly to grant authorization for the town. I think from what I have talked to some of our representatives, this is something that many of the committees will definitely look favorable on if the board is certainly requesting it straight from you and they hear it straight from from you. So we certainly would recommend approval of Resolution R-2018-02.
I'm going to move to approve Resolution R-2018-02, a resolution to request the Tennessee General Assembly to exempt the town of Farragut from the requirements of Tennessee Code annotated 67-4-1425 and authorize the town of Farragut to levy a privilege tax on hotel occupancy.
Second.
Any more discussion?
I will note, just because it's for information, just for people to realize, Alcoa, Harriman, Kingston, Lenore City, Morristown, Oak Ridge, Knoxville, and Maryville all have, are municipalities that all have hotel, motel taxes. We have already indicated that we are interested in having a tourism department, and I think this is a legitimate way to fund it. We are losing between $600,000 and $800,000 due to the gas tax. That's going to have a negative impact on us. So I support this.
Well, I'd just like to say that the fact that all those people around us have that tax, that drives people to our town to stay here in our hotels because they're less expensive for the same facilities and brings business into our town. And I think it's will be a real negative to the town, especially if we want to promote tourism. That you penalize, you get less of. That which you support, you get more of. So if we want more tourism, we don't penalize it.
Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Aye. Or no, rather.
Yeah. Next item is an ordinance 17-07, an ordinance to rezone. I got it. This is all
Here we go.
it's covered up. Ordinance 17-07, an ordinance to rezone parcel 44, tax map 152, located at 430 Virtue Road, 87.1 acres, from A, R2 and FPDR 1 SR 1. What is that?
OSR.
OSR. Now I lost my place.
And FPD.
And FPD, AKBP Properties Applicant.
This piece of property off Virtue Road is a little over 87 acres. It does have some environmental characteristics that can be a little bit of a challenge for it. It has a floodplain on the west portion of the property. It has very steep slopes on the south part. It's surrounded by Kingsgate and Sugarwood. When the Planning Commission looked at this back in March, there was actually a future land use map amendment that was approved to make the future land use more compatible with the characteristics of the property. So it was changed to the open space cluster residential. At the same meeting, there was the rezoning request to rezone the property to the R1 OSR, which would be consistent with the future land use map. The most significant issue that was part of that Planning Commission discussion was Virtue Road, the condition of Virtue Road, the fact that it doesn't meet the town standards that are provided for in the subdivision regulations. And there was a fair amount of discussion about that. The staff indicated that in the past with other rezoning requests on substandard roads, the process of rezoning a piece of property, it can inherently change the density allowed on that property and thus add more traffic to the street. So that is a trigger point essentially for making improvements to streets that don't meet our standards. If you're adding more average daily trips to those streets, then the street itself needs to be in a condition that it can handle that additional traffic. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning request because the district itself was most compatible with the characteristics of the property. They did condition their recommendation on Virtue Road being improved to the standards provided for in the subdivision regulations. This was looked at and voted on under first reading in December by the board. It was unanimously approved on first reading. The town attorney and the staff have been working on a cost share agreement before and since that time. It's actually now part of the language in Ordinance 1707, so that there is, as part of the rezoning itself, a condition placed on the rezoning that will address the needed improvements to Virtue Road, and that were a condition of the Planning Commission's recommendation. So the ordinance language itself now has as part of it that condition, and that's been added since first reading. So there has been that change, but that was something that the staff and the town attorney recommended, so that if you do approve this on second reading, it is tied to the condition of Virtue Road being improved as recommended by the Planning Commission. So if y'all have any questions on anything, myself or Tom would be happy to try to answer those.
I'm going to move to approve Ordinance 17-07 as amended on second reading.
Second.
I have a question. In Section 1, Part 1, it says, for each of the approximately 145 lots contemplated for development on the property. If we're approving this rezoning and then somebody comes up with a significantly different plan that has more than, what is approximately? Is that 145, give or take 5 units? What's the...
It was worded that way to give us the flexibility in the event that there were some relatively minor changes to the number of lots.
Okay.
If somebody comes in with a proposal for 20 lots, then that's a totally different dynamic, and I don't think that's going to happen, because the fact is I think we've pretty much got the agreement in final form at this point, and everybody seems to be working well together, and I think we'll have that agreement ready for the next meeting, and that'll be sort of the end of it.
Okay.
We did it this way because there were some deadlines involved in the developer's contract with the owner of the property, that we needed to have some of these loops closed by that deadline, which is coming up, but we weren't quite ready with the agreement, so we just put it in the amendment, or in the resolution, in this fashion.
Okay. That was all I had.
Any more discussion?
How do the developers feel about this? Is anybody here representing them?
I think his lawyer's been very helpful in working through it, and I think Mr. Smoke has talked to the developer himself in the last day or so, and I think everybody's pretty much on board with where we are.
Excellent.
I concur. We're fine with everything.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I have no more questions.
No more.
I have none.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ordinance 17-18, an ordinance to correct an error in the zoning designation for the property at 12603 Evans Road to change the designation from R1 rural residential to A agricultural, town of Farragut. Applicant.
This item is really just correcting an error on the town's adopted zoning map. The property in question on the north side of Evans Road is just west of the farm at Willow Creek subdivision. Prior to 2003, it was zoned agricultural. And somehow, during the process of rezonings around and within the farm at Willow Creek, the property got changed to R1. The property owner, who was also the owner in 2003, has, I guess, requested the town correct this error, since we've had a number of zoning maps that have been adopted since 2003. The manner to do that is to actually change this back through an ordinance approval, and that's what Ordinance 1718 is recommending, to change the property at 12603 Evans Road from R1 to agricultural, the way it was zoned prior to the error being made. This was unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning Commission and was approved on first reading, and the staff recommends approval on second reading.
Move to approve ordinance 17-18 on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion?
No
None.
no changes, correct?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next one is ordinance 17-19, ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Finance, Section 2-26-7, Depository for the town of funds of the what?
Farragut Municipal Code.
I don't see it. Okay, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. The purpose of this agenda item is to finalize the selection for the banking services for the town funds. As presented at the December 14th meeting, an RFP was prepared and published. Proposals from BB&T and 10 Bank were received November 29th. The board evaluated the proposals and chose 10 Bank as the designated depository for the town funds. The motion is to approve on second reading ordinance 17-19, designating 10 Bank as the depository for town funds.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We move to town administrator's report.
I'd like to say thank you to Commissioner Schoonmaker, who is here tonight. He has been working in Nashville diligently on the county's behalf and on our behalf. They recently got a bill filed. If you want to talk about it, Commissioner, you're more than welcome to, but it's a really good bill that's going to help out Farragut and the county, hopefully, see if we can get it passed or not, on and getting some administrative fees back on sales tax collections that the state brings in each year. So we really appreciate his efforts in that regard to get that bill working through the legislative process. So thank you very much.
Yes.
If you'd like
That'd be
to
helpful.
give it to us, that'd be great.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. You kind of caught me completely off guard here, but good thing. You know, for about a year, we've been working trying to get the local option sales tax administration fee that's charged by the Department of Revenue to each municipality in Tennessee returned back to that entity. In other words, they charge a 1 1/8% fee to get your own sales tax back. And so you think, well, 1 1/8%, that's probably not a lot of money. But when you look for the town of Farragut, it's $140,000 per year, which is a lot of money. For us in Knox County, obviously we don't have a lot of cash registers, but it's still $525,000 that we lose every year just in a fee to get our own sales tax back. And of course, the city of Knoxville loses $1.7 million every year. And if you think about it, the Department of Revenue probably 20 years ago had a 3-story building in Nashville with 200 or 250 employees, shuffling papers, using adding machines and calculators to try to figure out, well, is this business in Farragut or, the city of Knoxville or in Knox County? But now it's all electronic. Once a month, the businesses in Farragut electronically, funds transfer, send their money to Nashville. Nashville sits on it for 30 days. They turn around, push a button, and it comes back, and it's distributed to Farragut, Knox County, and the city of Knoxville. So it's like, why are we paying a fee when there's no more employees, no more, this infrastructure to try to get our money back? So now with it being just all digital, surely they don't need to charge $1.7 million just for the city of Knoxville, or $140,000 in your case, just to get your own money back. So Jason Zachary today introduced a bill to phase out that fee over a 3-year period, and Senator Briggs is going to carry that in the Senate. And the good thing is, I was in Nashville last evening, and I had an opportunity to speak to several senators and several representatives, and surprisingly, they were not aware that their counties and cities were having to pay a fee to get their sales tax back. So I took the liberty of educating them a little bit, and they were very surprised. But it's kind of unfortunate when you look at some of the counties surrounding Knoxville that are not as fortunate as us, like Campbell County, which is probably one of the bottom 10 counties in Tennessee as far as any kind of revenue source. And in 10 years, they've spent $852,000 to get their own sales tax back. I mean, and that's crazy when you think about a depressed county like Campbell County. So hopefully, I think, with a lot of the representatives realizing this is a way to bring money back to their own local government, because it's going to stay in local government. It's not going anywhere else. You're going to get your own money back to spend where you want it. So hopefully, I think people will sign on to the bill, and it'll get some more attention. So if you have a friend in Nashville that's not from our area, that's a representative or senator, please ask for their support. So,
What are the bill numbers?
yeah, it's the Senate bill's not been filed because that will probably be later this week.
Okay.
And let's see here, it's 14. Wait a minute, let me just make sure.
1532.
Thank you.
15.
1532.
Thank you.
You're on it.
Thank you, John, for sticking with this. I know that you started this last year, and you've stuck with it. And I know you dug through a lot of stuff to figure that this was out. You're really good that way, getting to
It's
the.
been kind of fun because, particularly when people are not aware of something. And I think it's one of those things where, every finance department in any town or any county, they're so used to seeing that fee, it's just kind of oblivious to them.
Yeah.
But when you start adding it up, well, what does it cost you on a yearly basis? They're like, oh my goodness. And even Roane County, I think just the county alone is like $183,000. That's hard. Those are hard dollars. So,
Yeah.
so hopefully we'll get something changed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schoonamaker.
Mayor, I had nothing else to report tonight.
All right. Town attorney's a report.
And no report tonight.
That's always good.
We are adjourned.
When he does it, then something's bad.